Well, I hope you've been working on bouncing that ball on your wedge and maybe a little bit of that hand-eye coordination as well as a bit of face awareness like we talked last time. Today I'd like to build off of that a little bit and talk about ball position and why it's important. We're going to talk a little bit about two different aspects of why ball position, and that being where the ball is located between your feet and why that might matter as to where the ball is going. So I want to start building a little bit off of that face awareness from last week. I'm going to use this tennis racket again. So I think we all are kind of taught from the basic first lesson that we kind of start with our normal stance, and with most irons the ball will be right in the middle, and then most people sort of learn that with a driver we move it further up towards your front foot. Now why we do that? If you remember from our last little video, we talked about face awareness and how the face rotates from open through to square and into closed as it moves through the impact zone. And so you can imagine that if the ball is too far back, the racket or the face might be a little bit still open, having not closed to square enough, or that if it's too far forward, it may have rotated through to closed by that point in the swing. Now, that doesn't account for all the adjustments that we might make as an athlete. So typically, like let's say for example, the ball's too far forward in my stance. Hand-eye coordination says, uh-oh, the face is going to be closed, and so you might hold it open a little bit longer. And again, that's just hard to time and hard to make that consistent. So having the ball in the right place between your feet is really important. Now I want to start here with a little bit of a demonstration here. And so I've got 3 clubs. I'm just going to give a visual here. I've got 9 iron, that's going to be 5 iron, and driver. And now if I set to my golf posture like we said before, hopefully from this angle you can see how this 9 iron is about dead center between my feet. 5 iron gets moved maybe a half a ball width forward, and then driver way out there on the instep of my front foot. Now we're going to look a little bit from down the line as to a different way that this might affect things in our golf swing, but from this angle looking forward, you can imagine how the length of the shaft might affect when and how the face rotates from open through square at impact and through to closed out in the follow through. So again, where that ball is between your feet is really important. Okay, now we've got the camera looking a little bit more down the line here, and where from the face-on view we talked about how the face rotates through impact and how that might affect the directionality of your shots. Looking down the line here, we can talk a little bit about trajectory. So as we look at these 3 shafts, we have 9, 5, and driver, and you can see how this 9 iron shaft is much steeper than the driver. So we might say that the iron swing or a short iron might be a little bit steeper angle of approach to the ball, where driver is going to be a little bit flatter. And you can think how this distance between the ball and my feet, obviously with driver it's much farther away. And so what we're going to pay attention to here is the tendency either to launch the ball too high or too low, and why that ball position between your feet might matter. So you could imagine then with 9 iron, we'd like the club to be working down into impact, pinching it against the ground and using the loft to get it up to the appropriate launch angle. And where driver, we'd like it to shallow out a little bit, coming maybe bottoming out in that arc about the middle of your stance and working either flat or even slightly up through impact. And so you could imagine then if I put this 9 iron at a pretty steep angle of approach, too far back or too far forward, it's going to change the way the ball comes out. And conversely with driver, it's really important that we have the ball in the appropriate place so that the face is square at impact and is working flat or slightly up through impact. Now, just sort of a common mistake we see, or if you struggle kind of to pop up the driver every now and then, this might be the first place that I would look, is at ball position. Now, if we take a driver and it's too far back in our stance, the club head would be moving down into impact, and having the ball on the tee, we tend to catch it up on the top of the face, or even I've seen some on the top of the driver, causing that real high pop-up. So again, ball position as to where it is between your feet is really important depending on what club you have to create the right trajectory. Now, moving back to this face-on view where hopefully you can see better that relationship of where the ball is between my feet and during setup. I've got 9 iron here, and with most irons, say Most short irons, 9, 8, 7, maybe at 6 iron we start to move it forward a little bit more. 5 iron, definitely a little more forward. And again, it's all relative to, like we saw down the line, as to how we want the club coming either down into impact, maybe flattening or shallowing that impact zone, or with driver moving a little up into impact. So here with 9 iron, I'm going to put it dead center between my feet, and I've got a little cross set up with the clubs here. Now I like to practice with this sometimes, just a good way to verify where the ball is. Sometimes just looking down, your perspective doesn't quite show you where the ball is, or you might think that it's in the middle and it's really not. So I've got this club set up here just to point this blue end of the club at the ball. I go ahead and set myself up here, and as I look down, I'd like to see here that not only is the ball in line with this club, but so are my hands. I don't have my hands pushed forward. I don't have my hands behind the ball at setup. And so again, just a good reference for not only where the ball is between your feet, but that your whole body is square at setup. So again, here, go ahead and hit this one. Good, pretty solid. Now, if we want to move to the driver, where we had said that we'd like to have the ball a little bit further forward, I'm going to just adjust this club here so that the shaft is pointed at the ball. And now I don't want that shaft to be in the middle of my stance. I'd like it to be just off the instep of my front foot. Okay, so just by nature now my hands are behind that shaft. The center, my sternum, is behind it, but that's okay. That's a good thing, because we want that ball to be, the ball position to be further forward. You'll notice from this vantage point, as I set the club down, the club head is ahead of my hands just slightly, as it's toward the front of my stance. So again here, on through, and there, obviously you can't see it here, but the club is working down to the middle of my stance and then just slightly up as it goes through impact, helping increase that launch angle and carry it further down the fairway. So I hope this gives you something that maybe you could take out onto the driving range, or just to start to think about as you maybe make some swings indoors in the wintertime. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Ben Welsh, your head golf professional here at Frost Creek. Look forward to seeing you here in the springtime. Okay, everyone, homework time again. Now, last time we worked a little bit on bouncing the ball on your wedge, and hopefully you've worked yourself to the place where you can grip it more toward the bottom end of the grip and just get a little more comfortable bouncing the ball on your wedge. So today we're going to add in a little bit of seeing if we can stop the ball on the wedge, just let it rest there, and then get it going again. Again, just a hand-eye coordination type exercise, seeing if we can stop it on the wedge, okay? So there's one. Part number 2 gets a little bit handy as we're going around the golf course, to see if you can just pick the ball up off of the ground using your wedge, maybe bounce it a couple times and flip it into your hand. So again here, just going to flip it up this way, bounce it a couple times and catch it, okay? It might look kind of simple, but I think sometimes it takes a little bit of practice. So maybe throw down a couple of balls yourself, see if you can get the face to scoop it up, and then go ahead and bounce it on the wedge, okay? Again, scoop it up. Bounce a couple on the wedge, see if maybe we can stop it, get it going again. Okay? Just some other little exercises you can do in your living room to get you ready for golf season.